Hey guys, Hackexploit here, back again with another video, and welcome to the web application penetration testing series. Alright, so in this video we're going to get started with spidering, more specifically spidering with Burp Suite. And the purpose of this video or this tutorial is to help you understand the spidering process and how to go about doing it with Burp Suite. Alright, so there's going to be a little bit of theory here, but I'll be explaining things. So again, this video is really focused on understanding spidering. Now, before we get started with that, I just wanted to let you know that the target or our web application that we're going to be targeting or we're going to be attacking is the damn vulnerable web application. Now, if you don't know what the damn vulnerable web application is, that's fine. You can just Google it, and I'll probably make a video on how to get it installed on Kali Linux. But what I would recommend, if you're a beginner or even if you're a professional in hacking, probably one of the best things that you need to have in your kit is Metasploitable 2. All right, and for the simple reason that it contains first and foremost a vulnerable operating system, and secondly it contains all the vulnerable web applications that we will be using at one stage during this series. Okay, so we're going to be starting off with the damn vulnerable web application. As I said, it comes pre-installed with Metasploitable 2. So all you need to do is get the local IP address on your Metasploitable 2 virtual machine, which in my case is 192.168.1.102. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my browser, and I'm just going to open up that that IP address 0.1.102, and just give it a few seconds to load up. As you can see, there we are. That's Metasploitable 2. And it's going to prompt us to select what vulnerable web app we want to use. In this case, we're going to select the DVWA, which is the damn vulnerable web application. So just click on that, and now it's going to ask you for your admin and password. In this case, for your username and password. Sorry about that. In this case, the username is admin and the password is password. Alright, so just hit login, and it's going to log you into the damn vulnerable web application. Now we'll be looking at this at a more at a later video, and the reason is we have to go through all of these options. But for now, if you go to the if I can just remember where it was, if I can just go to the security, so to the damn vulnerable web application security. At the moment it was high because I was actually performing some tests on it, but just change it to medium or low. But for now you won't be using it. I was just letting you know what web application we're going to be using. Alright, that being said, let's move on to Burp Suite. Alright, and I can start explaining the spidering process. Alright, so let me just open up Burp Suite. So I've updated it to the latest version. I think I'm running Kali Linux now. In the previous video I was running Parrot, so I think there should be an update, but I could be wrong. So let's just give that a few seconds to start up. Yeah, there is an update, so I'll do that later. And we'll just click on create our temporary project and use the Burp defaults and start Burp. Okay, so whilst that's starting, let me explain what spidering is. Alright, now the purpose of spidering is to identify our scope, alright, or what we want to scan. Now this is not exactly scanning, and we'll be looking at scanning, but essentially spidering is the process of mapping out our web application, and is very, very useful for finding links and web forms. Which is also very important because it will allow us to then furthermore attack the web forms, manipulate headers, etc., etc. Alright, now when you talk about automatic spidering with Burp Suite, it's essentially when Burp is spidering, it follows links, and it'll start following links, and it will start identifying files, folders, and forms from the web application. And it will the great thing about this is it will record all the requests and responses while it's performing the whole spidering process. Okay, so once you have a Burp Suite opened up here, you can, let me just expand it so we have a greater picture of what's going on exactly. Sorry if my virtual machine is a little bit slow. I need to configure it correctly. Anyway, what you want to do is, we've looked at the proxy section. Let's look at the spider section. And in here, this is a very, very simple menu. And to understand it, you can see that we have two tabs available. We have the control tab and we have the options tab. Alright. The control tab, essentially, if we look at it, as you can see, these settings are used to monitor and control the Burp spider. So it allows you to start and stop the Burp spidering, and you can also clear the queues. Alright, when you look at the options, which is right here, sorry about that. When you look at the options, there are a lot of options. We'll be looking at them in a second. Sorry about that. I actually got an email. Apologies there. Let's get started now with the control section. So the control section, it allows, we are able to control the spider status, where we can stop it and start it. And furthermore, we can clear the queues that already exist there. All right. We then have the spider scope, where we can define our own scope, and depending on what we want to spider. We'll look at that in a few seconds. And finally, if we look at the if we look in the options section here, we have the crawler settings, which allow us to specify the way the spider is going to crawl for the web content on the web application. We'll be looking at the maximum link depth and what that means. Passive spidering, that allows us to essentially continue spidering when we are looking through or we're going through the web application, or we're performing requests and responses when we're performing requests. As for the form submission, this is probably something that we'll be looking at in the next video, and we'll be doing this practically, where we'll be actually performing the spidering process. But for now, let me see what else. Yes, the request headers. The request headers are used to, you can manipulate essentially the headers. If you've learned about HTTP headers, by the way, I really want to cover HTTP because it's very important that you understand how the headers work. But we'll be looking at this all in advance. But now let's start off with the spider status. Well, not really with the spider status, but looking at the control tab. If you look at the spider scope, you can see that it'll use the default suite scope, which is defined in the target tab. If you just click on use a custom scope, you can see that, okay, first, if you just click on this little cog here, you can restore the defaults, you can load your own, and you can save the options. So that's just to do with that. Now, when you talk about using the advanced scope, here is where you can essentially, this is where you specify what you want to map. So you can specify a host, the port, etc., etc. Okay, again, we'll be looking at all of this as we move along, but for now, we're just going to use the default suite scope. We can just, if once you click on that, it's going to start the spidering process, but we don't need it right now. So I'm just going to pause it. And if we move on to the options now, the options tab has a lot of stuff that we need to look into. First and foremost, we have the crawler settings. All right. So when we're talking about the basic options, so for example, we can specify what the spider will crawl for. So you can choose to select for the robots.txt file, which is very important because it shows you exclusions. You then can detect, you can ignore the links to non-text content. You can request the root of all directories, very important stuff. But again, you can customize this to your liking. Now, one of the things I would recommend that you do not touch with if you do not know what you're doing yet is the maximum link depth. All right, the maximum link depth is essentially the number of links you want the spider to essentially to crawl or to map. Now, by default, 5 is in my situation, or in my case, what I like doing is alternating between 3 to 5. Anything higher than that will usually overload the web application, and it will cause it to lag or to respond very, very slowly. And again, that might not mean a lot right now, but trust me, when you'll actually be performing the penetration test on the web application, you really need a good response. Otherwise, you have your time to live, etc., etc. Okay, so let's look at what passive spidering is. All right, so passive spidering, as I said, is essentially just it allows you to continue scanning, or going through, or actually performing your requests as it essentially allows you to continue the spidering process as you're performing any other tasks. So as you can see, passive spidering monitors traffic through the web proxy to update the sitemap without making any new requests. All right, so passively spide as you browse. You can also select the link depth associated with proxy requests. Now this, I would recommend keeping it at 0 to 2. And that's because, again, you do not want a very, very deep link depth, in the sense that you're also going to be performing your own requests, and you'll be doing many other things. You could be looking at the decoder, or you could be focusing on the target, and you don't want it, again, to slow down the web application. All right, so form submission, again, this is something that I said we'll be talking about in the next video, because it is quite advanced, and we'll get started with the damn vulnerable web application there. Moving on to the Spider engine, we'll be looking at application login as well, but for now, we will just skip over that. When we talk about the Spider engine, all right, these settings control the engine used for making HTTP requests when spidering. All right, so this allows you to change the number of threads you want to use. And as I said, using more than, we can see right now it's at 10. what I would recommend is still keeping it within the range of 2 to 5, or you might cause the web application to slow down. And these are more advanced settings that you can use dependent on timing. All right, and we've talked about the request headers. They allow you to modify the way the spider will look towards the web applications. For example, you could edit the device that is being used, and you could change it, for example, into a mobile device, and you get the idea. You essentially allows you to change the request headers, and from that, obviously, you'll get a response back dependent on what you changed. All right, so that was the spidering, or actually the theory revolving around spidering. Now we'll be looking at how spidering really works in the next video. I know some of you may not like this, that I actually went through theory and I haven't talked about doing anything. But remember, it's very, very important to understand what exactly is happening behind spidering. And in the next video, we'll actually get started with the spidering process. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or you found value in it, please leave a like down below. If you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comment section. You can hit me up on my social networks and on my site. If you have any video suggestions, you can leave them on the website as well. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.